Wow. Wow.
Yep.
Bruins win it 2-1 in overtime, like I said. Remember, Game 6, I said they're winning 2-1 in OT. It's in Pastrnak on a beautiful play from Hampus Lindholm. That's exactly what's going to happen. We're presented by Prize Picks. Go use that promo code CLNS to get up to $100 matched on your first deposit. And we're brought to you by Game Time. Use that promo code CLNS. You want to go to round 2? Get $20 off with the promo code CLNS. They win. They won it, despite some sloppy play, despite a lot of the things we talked about in games 5 and 6. They pull it out. They pulled it out, and guess who? David Pastrnak wins it. And, we shouldn't be surprised. I'm not. I know it wasn't great. This wasn't great, but in a big moment like that, you expect your best player to step up, and he did. So what's your initial thought and takeaway from this game?
Well, I think my initial thought is, wow, I'm still a fan. Like, I think you had alluded to the fact in a few text messages, the idea that this is nerve-wracking. I had butterflies in my stomach from the start of the third period on. And once Nylander scored, I just assumed the game was over, right? Like the game had been played as if that first goal was going to be the game winner. And I think the number one key to that game for Boston tonight was that third line. Frederick, Van Riemsdyk, Brazeau, they were their best line all night. And then Hampus Lindholm decided to play in the third period, and he was a different player, and he was the difference maker there. Obviously scoring the goal to tie it, and then that's an unbelievable play to try to make that in overtime. So I would say those two things are the things that stick out. While Frederick's line was really good, Brazeau was probably your best player all night, and then Hampus Lindholm in the third, and then overtime. That's the type of player that you kind of expect from a puck-moving defenseman.
It is. I mean, you look at Lindholm in that third period, and you're right. He looks like a different guy. I mean, that confidence with the puck, and he scores that goal right after Brazeau, who you mentioned, almost scored. And then, again, that's like all series. I think that's what we wanted them to do. Just, that's a quick shot from, the face-off dot. He didn't try to look for a pass. And the Bruins still tonight were trying to find, passing lanes that weren't there. And, there were a couple instances around the net where there were just no shots taken. And that Lindholm goal was a perfect example of just shoot the puck, shoot the freaking puck, and it goes in. And then you see that the great pass. Torrey Krug used to do this all the time. The
slap
dumping
pass.
it in, the slap pass basically, and from the red line, and Pastrnak goes in, and that's a perfect Pastrnak goal, right? Has it in the perfect spot, takes it to his backhand, and finishes it. So, I mean, yeah, you're right. I mean, Lindholm was a difference maker in that third, which was huge. I mean, we've criticized him a lot through this series, and rightfully so. He had some bad turnovers in the first and second, but came through in the third when it mattered. And then, David Pastrnak. I thought David Pastrnak, had a rough start to this game, but I thought there was at least more of a desire to get to high danger areas tonight, at least in the third. And I think you can say that for the Bruins as a whole. And then, he gets that OT winner. And I wonder, is this going to, break open the dam for Pastrnak? Is this going to be what, propels him to play well against the Panthers in the next round? And I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves with the Panthers yet. Let's soak this in. The Leafs fans, walking away from Maple Leaf Square. Let's enjoy this, right, Bruins fans? Enjoy this. But Pastrnak again. I mean, what do you think of Pasternak's game overall?
Yeah, no, he wasn't good tonight.
He was a little bit better in the third. I'll give him that.
Urgency to try to create his own shot tonight. I still think wall battles lost. I think on the forecheck non-existent. But right, like he has that capability to turn the game around with one play, and I think that's what you're hoping moving forward, is that this is the foundation. This goal, which is obviously a huge goal, right? Like will help springboard him, because they have no chance. And I know you don't want to talk about Florida. You have no chance if he doesn't play well, or if he continues to play the way.
Completely agree. I completely agree.
Yeah, if he continues to play the way he's been playing, you're out in 4 or 5, and thanks for coming. But yeah, he's an elite hockey player that very few people can pick that up off the wall at full speed. Like if you watch that, he has an idea that that's coming right from like the second he passes it to Lindholm on that hinge pass, you can see him wheeling. And Lindholm, obviously, with the great geometry class there, but to
Must
be
have
able
to
to,
say, Mark.
yeah, to be able to make that stick handle in the blue paint, that's why you score 50 goals a year, right? Like, and I guess we've gone 6 minutes and we haven't said anything about Jeremy Swayman. He was again the best player in the game tonight. I mean, the save after the goal is why they win this game. So he makes that save on the tip. I think it was Edmondson. I don't know who was driving through the middle there, but that blocker save that's huge. That's huge. And you allow your team, like it looked like that face off right after the goal. It's that you kind of let down because right, like kind of that assumption. Oh, this game's been so tight all game. One goal was going to be the difference maker, and he makes a huge save, and there was some momentum there.
There was, and I mean, again, there were. I'd have to look at the natural subject. By the way, my Wi-Fi is not great right now. So if I drop off for any bit, I will be right back. But I don't think that. Hopefully, it doesn't happen. Right, just letting you know. I don't have natural stat trick open at the moment, but Swayman made some freaking huge saves. And again, the one goal that goes in is not his fault. Carlo tripped over himself and turned it right over, and Nylander was wide open in front for with an open net. Of course, he's going to score that. Swayman to me was the MVP of this whole series. The Bruins win this series because of Jeremy Swayman. He keeps them afloat. I mean, there were still tendencies tonight that I didn't like from the Bruins. I mean, again, like we texted about it a lot. The breakout still, I mean, what is that? You're throwing it up the strong side. The forecheck, why are you not being more aggressive on Toronto's D? But Swayman was the one constant, even with the turnovers behind their own net, even with the turnovers coming out of their own zone, he was making big saves consistently. And if I'm Jim Montgomery, I am buying Jeremy Swayman whatever the hell he wants. And same with the team. And I think Jeremy Swayman has now played his way into getting a PHAT contract this offseason. I think it's, because again, like he's the reason that we're not sitting here going, all right, Jim Montgomery should be gone. And then this and that. They're on to round 2 because of Jeremy Swayman. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah. I mean, without Jeremy Swayman, you're not playing, right? Like you look at his numbers throughout the series. I don't even know what they would be up tonight. Heading into today's game, was it 9-4-9?
Yeah, it was.
Less than 2 goals in every game against. I mean, you heard on the national broadcast them all talking about him being the best goalie throughout the NHL playoffs, and he was that again tonight. So I think, and maybe this is too early, but I think you go right back to him.
I know where you're going. Go with it.
I think you go right back to him on Monday night. I think he's locked in, and it's probably that idea that he is challenging for a large contract, and he's playing to that level of an upper echelon goalie. So I think you go right back to him on Monday night.
That's a great comment. Took the for sale sign from his house down. I agree with you. I agree. And that doesn't mean he plays every single game of the series. It looks like he should. He's playing out of his mind, right? I think the plan going into playing Florida is you start Swayman in game 1 and you see where it goes. Like you play until you can't. And I think that's what you run with next series. Is Swayman's earned the right to definitely get game 1 and then kind of get the benefit of the doubt at least for game 2. Which is why you won this series. You're not going to go away from your best player. Someone just asked me how loud was the garden, Evan, on Pasta's goal. Deafening. I think I tweeted the building was vibrating, and it was like that. like this place went bananas when that in. Obviously, I mean it's at 8 p.m. I think everyone at intermission going into OT, it just exploded, which is awesome. So it was good to see a good crowd tonight. But yeah, I mean, like Swayman starts game one, no doubt, no doubt, no
No,
doubt in my mind.
I think you're going right back to the same lineup. I do think for the first period and then the last half of the third, in the last half of the third into overtime, that's the team that you expect on any given evening. And I think you roll out that same lineup. Sorry, I think by and large, people played well. I think certainly too many turnovers in the defensive end that cost you. And I think with Florida's forecheck, that's going to be an issue. And someone asked the question, did Boston make an adjustment to Toronto's F2? They did at times, not enough. So what Boston did tonight at times, and it happened and this I texted you, interesting face-off at the beginning of the third period. So puck goes into Boston's end. They invite the first forechecker that is coming with speed, and they reverse it. So you're taking it strong side, and you reverse it back to your partner. So your partner comes underneath you, and then you go back up that strong side. So at times tonight, they did reverse the puck. They had a little bit better zone exits, but far too often, again, they were chipping it up strong side. I think what they were trying to do, and this is having watched it now, I think that Toronto's defense pinched on absolutely everything. I think they were trying to play it over their head, but under pressure, you never really able to do that. So it consistently got bottled up just at the top of the circle, Toronto's defense keeping it in. And so that's something that they're going to have to change, because Sam Bennett's coming, right?
Yep.
Like he is going to be aggressive. Kachuk's going to be aggressive. They're going to finish every hit on Lindholm and McAvoy and make that series really difficult on Boston's defense. So they do. Zone entries have got to be far better.
I agree. And again, like Florida,
zone exits, not zone entries, zone exit.
But zone entries need to be better too. You're right though about zone exits. I mean, because again, Florida kind of started that problem last year with the Bruins, where they were having a tough time moving the puck out of their own zone, and Florida's going to be even harder on them. Kachuk, Barkov, guys like that. And I think there's a lot to improve upon. I think it would have been nice to have a little bit of a break. That's why everybody wishes that this series ended after Game 5. You get a little bit of a break before Game 1. But we don't know. I don't think we know yet when Game 1 is going to be in the next series. I know that people think it might be Monday. I don't know yet. So we'll see what happens with that. But I think, the big picture is Jim Montgomery probably saves his job, right? That's number one. That's number one on the list. And number two, and we've been negative about.
Can we talk about that though? Can we talk about that just for a second?
Let's do it. No, we can talk about it for a long time.
No, I want to talk about this. We all agree that David Pastrnak struggled, right?
Yes.
Okay. Consistently, the whole game at home tonight played against Tavares and Nice. Sorry. And they had said before the game that Matthew Nyes had logged 45 minutes against David Pastrnak in the series. At no point did you go away from that.
I don't know why. And if they had lost, I think we would have. I don't know if it would have been an opening take. We would have talked as we are right now. They never went away from matchups. You always fourth line against fourth line, and I don't know why you didn't try to gain an advantage. And maybe that's because he doesn't have faith in the fourth line's ability to go against Tavares' line. But you take that chance in Game 7. You take that chance, and I agree with you. I agree with you on that.
So the thing was just you had the fourth line 4 times take offensive zone draws, which I get. Now, if this is a regular season game and you're putting your fourth line out there, right? You're 200 feet away from your net. So go ahead. But offensive opportunities in the playoffs, and especially in a game 7, are so hard to come by. That's where you're trying to gain the advantage. Put out your best line against their fourth line. And you didn't do that. And yes, Brandon Carlo falls, but that's Matthews and Nylander out against Boquist, Maroon, and Beecher on that goal against. Now, that's probably a recognition from, right, like Montgomery probably already had them out on a change. Toronto recognized that. Hey, to their credit, we recognize it. Let's get them out there right away, and that's in the back of the net. So you've got to do a better job at home of creating advantages for Pastrnak, especially, right? Let's call a spade, and everyone has been saying it all year, and it's come to fruition. Your lack of offensive center depth hurts Pastrnak, right?
Oh God, yeah.
So you moved Zaka to the wing. Coyle had a good first period, but then after that disappeared. So you've got to create it. You got to create matchups that Pastrnak can exploit, and they didn't do that throughout the whole series. And that's just you stuck with Pastrnak against Nyes, and that didn't help him.
By the way, game 1 is Monday at 8 p.m. in Florida. So we'll be right back at it 2 days later. Very quick turnaround. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I didn't like that. I didn't like because again, like when with Bruce Cassidy, they were pretty good at exploiting matchups, and they would aim at those, and you'd try to find that. They also had a fourth line back then that could go against teams' top line. I don't think this fourth line is fully capable of that, but your third line could be. I thought we opened with this, but like Frederick, Brazeau, and JVR were outstanding tonight. I mean, on that Lindholm goal, Brazeau almost scored right before it, and that was just a great forechecking play around the net. Like getting dirty, and like that line looks good. Brazeau was great tonight. Brazeau was awesome. I thought the way he fought for interior ice. He's confident with the puck. Like he used his size well. I liked him.
That was it. The first period too. He goes inside out on Morgan Riley and misses high blocker side. I did not see that.
Yes.
I did not see that agility coming, but his ability to possess the puck and be a threat down low. He's going to be more important in this second round because the game will be a little bit more physical. There'll be a little bit more possession of the puck low for Boston. So he was really good, but Van Riemsdyk was great too. So credit to that third line all night.
Credit to them. So continuing on what we were saying before about Montgomery, I think this win saves his job for now. Again, we'll see what happens in the next round. But I mean, he has not now blown 2 straight 3-1 leads.
Yep.
He has not. But I think this, we talked a lot about after last episode. This team needs a shakeup. The core needs a shakeup. They're choking too often, and they're not winning the big games. Yeah, shout out Evan Sniffles. I know allergies are killing me today, absolutely killing me. Even inside, my allergies are not doing me any favors. So I apologize. Thankfully, I don't have my mic, so I'm not like right into the mic. At least my AirPods kind of have crappy sound quality, and I apologize for that. But again, like we're not asked. I think there are questions with this roster. I think there are definitely areas to improve, no doubt. I talked about this with Hags the other day. Like you need to find, if you can get a number 1 center, go get it. If you can get depth in the top 6 for wings, that's great. Like do it. But as for now, like do they need to shake up the core? I mean, they just won a big game. They didn't play their best. They played better than the last 2 for sure. But I don't think you need to shake up the core quite yet. We'll see what happens against Florida. I don't think anyone's really picking them against Florida. I think it might be a little bit closer of a series than people think. I haven't put a official prediction together, but like everybody always thinks series are going to be lopsided. I don't think it's going to be fully lopsided, but I think this win does a lot for this core. They're, Yes, they've choked away some stuff, but they got this done. The Leafs are still beneath them, which again, if the Leafs had won tonight, Bruins would have went whoop, right down here. Yes.
Toronto played better than them tonight. And
yeah, but the Bruins won.
Yes, they won. What you enjoy moving forward was that there was resiliency. They didn't quit when they went down 1-0. But I think by and large, and especially in that second period, this is on their forecheck, and I don't know who puts that together, but Boston allowed Toronto to dominate them through the second period. And yeah, if you had faith in your right, like you're calling it your core, if you had faith in your core to put pressure on Toronto's D all night, you would have let them go, and you didn't. Right, like you were trying to create turnovers in the neutral zone. You weren't sure that you were fast, and this is what I think. I don't think you were sure that you were fast enough to put enough pressure on Toronto's D to create turnovers below the goal line. So you try to bottle up the neutral zone, but in effect, you just allowed zone entries all night. And this would be a question for anyone, right? You're obviously, and I think we talked about this after game one. You're a better player when you have time and space, right? Anytime time and space is taken away from anyone, the game becomes hard. Boston continually sat back in the neutral zone, but not on the offensive side of the red line. They sat back on the defensive side of the red line, right? And the reason you would be on the reason you and it's a simple the reason you're on the offensive side of the red line when you're going through a neutral zone forecheck is so that if they have to dump it, they ice the puck. So you move back past into the defensive side of the red line, then you're allowing them to get pucks in deep with speed. And that was, you were constantly under pressure all evening. I don't know if that changes for the Florida series. That is something that they're going to have to change. You are not going to be able to allow Florida to put pucks in deep and then just physically outplay you below the goal line. And you don't want Lindholm and McAvoy and Carlo taking hits for the majority of the season.
No, you don't. But again, obviously the Leafs played better tonight. I agree. The Leafs played a better game. But in 3 years, when we remember this, we're not going to remember that. We're just going to remember Bruins pulled it out. Bruins won. And I agree with you. There are roster questions with this team. No doubt. We've gone so in depth on it. And we will continue to in what they need going forward. But tonight was a step in the right direction. I think, no doubt. I mean, again, it was not their best game. I agreed with you. I was texting you all game. I thought they were so cooked. I thought the Bruins were done. I did. But they pulled it out, and props to them. Lindholm and Pastrnak stepped up when it mattered most. Swayman was outstanding this series. You know who I thought had a really good game tonight? And we can get it. We'll get into McAvoy in a bit. But I thought Mason Lohrei was outstanding.
Yeah, he was.
I think one of the big takeaways from this game and this series is you got something in him. And, you think it with a prospect, but you never know until you see it, right? And I remember in 2017, Charlie McAvoy was fresh out of college, and the Bruins had no D depth. Everybody was hurt, and they brought McAvoy up from Providence and had him come in and go against that wagon of a Senators team. And he was phenomenal. And it was really because he just played freely. He just did his thing. And Lohrei, to me, we talk about Carlo and Lindholm and McAvoy being kind of iffy with the puck, and you can see that the pressure gets to them at times, right? Lohrei just played freely. He tried to dangle through, and he almost did it. Just smart, simple passes at times. He's such good vision. He's good. He still has a little work to do in his own zone, but aggressive, stepped up in the neutral zone on certain. I thought Lohrei was great, and I think the real positive you have now is he's not just coming in for a game. He's in. He is in the lineup, and he is a bright spot, I think, for this team going forward.
No, I think the thing is he plays with confidence, right? He understands what his game is. His game is skating. with second period where he tries to go between the legs off a nice rush. But I think moving forward with McAvoy, Carlo, and Lohrei, you're going to be in a good position on defense. I think you obviously have to fill in the gaps around him, but certainly someone that can run a power play, that's going to chip in offensively. And as he starts to round out his game, he's going to be a good defender because of how well he skates, because of his length, because of his athleticism. So you're going to want to continue to develop the defensive part of his skill set. But he had a great night tonight, and he was not scared by the moment, and that's what you're going to want from what I think you would agree as a core part of your team moving forward. And his confidence, that was great tonight.
It's almost like, when you're young, kind of a rookie and a little bit naive, you don't really, you just don't understand the gravity of the situation. So like, I'm just going to go do it. And he did. And he was confident in what he was doing. And I just, again, like, do we say that he's part of the core going forward? I don't know. He's not, I don't know if he's there with Pastrnak and McAvoy yet, but the encouraging signs are that he is headed in that direction. He's headed in potentially being a top left shot defenseman on your team. And I think that's a really good sign because he's 6'5", he skates well, he's got high offensive upside. And again, it's a game and it's been a series, but I think like if this was a stock, would be like, all right, it's trending in a very good direction. We don't know what's going to happen against Florida, but so far I've really liked what I've seen from Lohrei. Yeah. I really have.
And so what I'm saying to you, like part of the core with any stock, people will call and ask you to trade. If someone calls you tomorrow and is looking to trade for Mason Lohrei, are you answering that call?
No, not right now.
Okay.
No.
So he's part of your core then. He's a good player. He's a good young player that you wouldn't trade, right? And so on your team right now, you're probably looking at Swayman, Pastrnak, McAvoy, Lohrei, Patra. I don't know.
I mean, it's funny because like that injury sucked to Patra because I was so curious to see how his trajectory was going to go over the course of a season. What was he going to be able to do? Where was he going to fit? I know he kind of cooled off a bit right before he got hurt, but it would have been really interesting to see where he would have fit with this team at such a young age, and sort of what he could end up doing. But again, you're getting something out of Lohrei, and that's a prospect, right? Like he's worked, he's been good, and so I think that's an encouraging thing. One thing that has not been encouraging is Charlie McAvoy. And I think that's been, I don't mean to get negative on y'all. I know it's a big night. We've talked a lot of positive things. We do have to discuss this. I don't know what it is, but when I was talking to some of the other writers about this, he's good at getting shooting lanes. Like he's good at getting defenders to bite at the blue line and go in a different direction, but he's always looking for the pass. It's like, just shoot it. You saw Lindholm's goal there, right? Like, just shoot the puck. Shoot the puck. And I think with McAvoy, it's like, just throw a shot on net. And I know the Leafs were blocking everything, but he's doing a good enough job to open up the shooting lane. Do it. Just shoot it. So, you need more from McAvoy going forward.
Yeah, I think the one thing that I liked about his game tonight, I think offensively he tried to be more he was aggressive tonight. I think oftentimes, and maybe overly aggressive in and around the net, pinching down the wall. Yeah, he definitely overhandled pucks at opportunities. But I think moving forward, you're going to want him to be that aggressive. The one thing that is to his disadvantage, and you look at his numbers, he played nearly 30 minutes tonight. That's a lot of hockey.
It is.
And what I don't think people – no, I know people understand this. Consistently, he's getting asked to play minutes against top lines. And then you're expecting probably more offense out of him than he's capable of giving you. He's never going to be a 70 point defenseman at tops, right? He'll get you 60, 65, but he's shown through the early part of his career that he's in that high 40s, 50 range, and you want more from him because he's your number one. But he's an elite shutdown guy, and that plays on an edge, that plays physical, that can skate, and it's just recently in the last 3 games here, he's turned the puck over a little bit, and he's going to have to manage the puck better in the Florida series because right, like we've said this a number of times, they'll put a target on McAvoy and they'll try to take him out of the series.
I agree with you. I agree. And again, he does play so many minutes, and you do have to take that into consideration, but you got to own it. You got to own it. And I think, when you have those shots, when you have chances, and he does join the rush. He is good at moving the puck up ice, joining the rush. And again, he didn't set you. I mean, he didn't contribute to a goal against. There was one goal against, but again, on that power play, I tweeted it shoot the freaking thing. I had an open shot and just trying to pass it. So again, I think, if you can change that one little thing, he's going to continue to be your horse going forward. We know that. He's super physical, which is good. And in a series like he's built for this time of year. Charlie McAvoy is built for this time of year. And I think, if you can make those adjustments, which they weren't great at making adjustments during the series, but if they can make that adjustment, I think they can get something out of that.
And I think the same thing that you're talking about with Pastrnak getting the goal, hopefully that will springboard him, maybe for the team too. Maybe having made it to the second round, they'll definitely be the underdog. Maybe they play a little bit looser. Maybe there's some freedom to their game. And instead of playing not to lose, they'll go out and try to win. And I think a commenter is exactly right. They need to win game one. Florida has been sitting there for an extended period of time. They're going to have to knock the rust off a little bit. Yeah, they'll be fresher, but that's a long time not to play a game. So game one's huge.
Teams don't do well with a big layoff. They don't. Teams are not great with that. I mean, it's good to get healthy, but the Bruins are coming off a big win. They'll be right back at it. It's Sunday. It's 12 a.m. So tomorrow they'll be right back at it in Florida. So, you wonder if that plays a factor in that. Also, you have the revenge idea from last year. And you also have this thing, and I can't fully back it up. I can't quantify it, but I think when a team has a scare like this and overcomes it, I think their worst fear was last year happening again. And that was what was happening, right? 3-1 lead in the first round. Game 5, lose an OT. Game 6, just a tough loss. You don't show up. You don't show up in Game 5 either. And then in Game 7, you're going to OT again. And it's holy crap. And they almost scored an own goal at the end of the first period, at the end of the third.
Sure, yeah.
And to me, and then they win it. At the 11th hour, they make sure it's not like last year. And you just wonder if this team's going to play a little looser. And you just wonder if this team, with the revenge on the mind from last year, is going to be different. And sort of, it's funny, I don't know how close you watched the college hockey playoffs this year, the tournament, but Denver was a number 1 seed, faced UMass. UMass outplayed them the whole game, took them to double OT, outshot them, had way more chances, and Denver escaped with a win. And I remember thinking at the time, the team can, that does a lot for confidence of all right, we got past round 1, now we can do anything. And they went on to win the national championship. I'm not saying the Bruins are going to win the cup. My God, that's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is, I think they put up a fight against Florida. I do. And I just wonder if this is a monkey off their back. And it ends with Pastrnak scoring too. So now he's, not known as this guy who doesn't show up in the playoffs. He showed up when it mattered most. So to me, I think this is a big win for that group in moving on, in just not just getting the second round, but getting this out of the way. And Montgomery finally makes it to the second round, which I think is another huge thing.
No, I mean, and I think that's exactly what I was saying before. The idea that You've gotten over this hump. There's no expectations for the second round. I would imagine everyone across the board, as far as sports writers, are going to pick Florida to win this series in probably 5 or 6. But that's why I think it's imperative. The way that you finished the third period and you finished overtime, you have to play that way game one. You've got to be desperate. You've got to recognize that you have an opportunity. You played a 7-game series. Yes, it was physical, but you have Florida that's been sitting there for some time. You've got to put pressure on them early. And if they lose game one, then see what happens from there.
And if you can steal one in Florida, that goes a long way. Goes a long way in a series like that, and cleaning up play at home. And obviously they're better in net with Bobrovsky, no doubt. And he's been outstanding this year, Vezina candidate. So you do have that. They don't have holes. Florida doesn't really have holes. So you gotta you gotta be better at making adjustments. You gotta try to find a way to maximize matchups. It's interesting. I'm surprised they won this game. I am. I'm very surprised. The way things were trending, I'm like, I've seen this before. I've seen this. Just letting it just slip from the grasp. But they pulled it out. They pulled it out. Our friends over at Prize Picks might be a fun thing to start doing in the second round. So a quick word from our friends over at Prize Picks.
Quick break in the action to tell you about my good friends over at Prize Picks. Prize Picks has something for every sports fan, from basketball and hockey to League of Legends and everything in between. You can pick LeBron, Caitlin Clark, Connor McDavid, and Jude Bellingham all in the same entry. Prize Picks is really simple to play. I can make my picks and submit my entry in less than 60 seconds. And the best part, quick withdrawals, and it's easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stat types are what make Prize Picks the #1 fantasy sports app. As the Bruins playoffs roll on, I'm liking the pick of Jeremy Swayman more saves. He's just been so good of late. And you know what? I also like Jake DeBrusk more goals. So download the app today and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, download the app today and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Now, back to the show.
So one thing that was huge in this game, and I think this is a big reason, if the Bruins had lost this, we would have been like, holy crap, what a bag fumble. You get Ilya Samsonov. Instead of Woll. Now, granted, the Lindholm goal was off kind of a net front play. I don't know if it's soft. Maybe should have had it. I'd have to go back and watch. The breakaway goal, that's Pastrnak on a breakaway. That's going to happen. But, again, that's a big break for the Bruins to get Samsonov instead of Woll in a game like this, whether that's mental, hey, we've had success against this guy, or just not having to face Woll. But you also have the other side of it where it's like, well, they couldn't really get a lot going offensively against Samsonov anyway. They're vacuuming around me, so I apologize. But at least they've come away with the win. I think that Samsonov late addition was stunning. That was huge news. And, I don't know if they win because of Samsonov, but they did win. And they beat Samsonov again. So I'm curious if you thought Samsonov made a huge difference in this game.
I thought he was really good early on, especially. And you could tell that he was locked in. Usually when a goalie's locked in, they're swallowing up rebounds, and he did that early. Anything that was hitting his chest, he didn't drop any rebounds. I think on the Lindholm goal, Lindholm probably doesn't get enough credit for some poise there. He allows the Toronto, forward, or let's just call it a defender, to kind of slide on by. he has the patience, and then the shot. So I think Samsonov is probably reading initial shot, and then the half-second hold probably gets him to pause, and then leaves that top corner open a little bit. But definitely not the reason that Toronto lost. I thought he was good. I thought early in the first period, where Boston had shown you that they were committed to putting more shots on net, I think he kept Toronto in that first period.
He did. And I think it's interesting because that first period was all Bruins. And they still only had 4 high danger chances. I didn't think they had enough from grade A ice, but it was more encouraging of a first period than games 5 and 6. So that's a good thing. But on the other end of it, he saves them there. And then that second period, it was all Leafs. The Leafs dominated the second period. And I think for both teams to come out 0-0, it was sort of a confidence boost for both. But I would agree. I don't think the Leafs lost because of Ilya Samsonov. Like, I don't think – I think the Bruins should have taken more advantage of it, right? Like, there was a play in I forget what period, might have been the first or second, where Geeky had the puck around the Toronto net, and he cuts right from behind the net right to the middle and looks to pass it. And it's like, dude, just shoot it. Shoot it. And it's those types of plays. And we've said it before, like, it's great to want to get better chances with passing it. But my God, if you're in a good spot, shoot it. And I think in general, in a game like this, it's game 7, the guy against the guy like Samsonov, shoot the freaking puck. No matter where you are in the offensive zone, shoot it. If you have an open shot, take it. And I still don't think the Bruins did enough of that tonight. I still don't think they did.
So I think that's going to be hard to get out of their DNA, right? You played 82 games where you try to create more quality shots than quantity, right? So you have these opportunities. I think they're conditioned to look for that additional pass, and so that's gonna be a hard habit to break. Even as you move forward in these playoffs, I think you're going to continually be frustrated by Boston not taking the shots that you want, right? Like, and PK Subban had alluded to it on the telecast. Made Samsonov too comfortable early in the first period. You got to take non-traditional shots, putting pucks at his feet, putting it low pad, crashing the net, and that's just not who they are. Like, having intently watched Boston for 7 games, I can't see that changing throughout the playoffs, and it's gonna get me mad. But that's who they are. That's what the game plan is, and I've got to get used to that. Evan, you went out. You're on mute.
I muted myself because there was a vacuum around, and I didn't want people to have to hear like. Murr. Thank you for reminding me on that. Yeah, you will have to get used to it, but I mean, they also have to make some adjustments in that, right? And they did a little bit tonight. I mean, they finished with 31 shots. Okay, but I thought there were chances they passed up. We talked about McAvoy, that geeky play. There were some others. I see like you can hear shoot like in like because we're right above the balcony, so you can hear everybody being like shoot. And I think a lot of the times they're right. Like, a lot of the times you're like, oh my God, but they are right. They were right in this series. Some interesting quotes coming out of the locker room. Montgomery said Swayman was our best player in the series, and it wasn't even close. That's indisputable. That is a fact. He also, on Lohrei, games 6 and 7 were moments for him where I hope it's his coming out party. Knowing you belong and how much you mean to the growth of our team should be really comforting. I think that hits at kind of what we talked about, a few minutes ago, in the sense that, like, he's now moved into, he's moved from, he should be a piece. Let's see what he can do, to, all right, this guy might be a top pairing left shot defenseman. And to me, like, the 2 biggest takeaways I have from this series for the Bruins going forward is that about Lohrei. That he's now probably on track to be a core piece. And Swayman is your goalie of the future.
Yeah.
I think there's no doubt now that Jeremy Swayman deserves long-term money, long-term, and to be the number 1 guy. And I'm really fascinated to see what he does in this next series, because he did have the advantage of owning the Leafs all year. So there was that. but I like just how good he is. And Carl, like you've seen it, like just the poise and a commenter mentions his rebound control. Just didn't let in soft goals at all this series. Made the necessary saves. Made saves that he shouldn't have made. Someone earlier, Diego Bass said something along the lines of he had like 7.4 goals saved above expected. I'm sorry, my brain's fried if I messed that stat up. Diego, feel free to comment it again. But like stuff like that, to me, like you now know those two are Swayman definitely is, and Lohrei is on track to be. And I think that's an encouraging thing with this roster, at least going forward.
Yeah, I think with the roster moving forward, depending on which Hampus Lindholm comes to play, let's say next series, if he's capable of building off what he did in the third period and the overtime, and he gets back to playing at the level, look, the four defensemen that you have, McAvoy, Lohrei, Carlo, Hampus Lindholm, like you can't ask for more than that. There isn't many teams in the National Hockey League that are going to be able to roll those four players out there on any given evening. And I know that's a what if on Lindholm, but Lohrei, I think, is going to be a guy that has the capabilities of putting up 40 points in the National Hockey League. I think he's just so supremely confident in his abilities, and that's the same thing that you see from Jeremy Swayman. He plays the game confident, right? And he's really sure in the skill set that he has, and he plays with a little bit of arrogance, right? Which is
You're
great.
right.
And I think
I'm not rolling my eyes at you. I'm rolling my eyes. They're switching this over to the Celtics parquet, and it's loud as hell. So
that's
my
all right.
apologies to people at home.
Yeah,
oh my god,
that's all right. I think the Bruins enjoy playing in front of Swayman, and that's not to say that they don't play hard for Linus Ullmark. It just there's a confidence to Swayman's game, and I think he is the guy moving forward. And I think someone asked in the comment section, right, like, do you continue with this move, like the goalie rotation moving forward? And I think it's probably pretty clear that you're gonna have to trade Ullmark.
Yeah. I mean, that was clear going in. I don't think that's anything new. Trading Ullmark, I think, that's been on the table since before the playoffs. I think the interesting thing, and I highlighted this comment for a reason. John says, and no more talk about a goaltending rotation. Thank God. I don't know if this ends it. I think what it does, though, is Swayman is definitely starting game one and most likely game two. And I think you're really only switching to Ullmark if Swayman is struggling or if the Bruins are down like 2-0. Like, that's all you're doing. You're not going into Florida going, all right, Swayman gets game one, Ullmark's game two, Swayman game three. Like, that, they're not doing that. I think Swayman's been too good. I think he's earned the benefit of that. And I think it's a new series, right? You can try this out a bit. If they really wanted to go back to Ullmark in game two, but like, what will it have been then? 2 weeks since he would have started a game. So I just, to me, like, I don't think the rotation's over, but I think it's very clear that Swayman is the guy.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go to Ullmark, you have to be confident that he can. I think they're confident he can do it, but I think you only go to Ullmark if Swayman starts to struggle at this point. Because Swayman's been that good. I mean, Swayman, I haven't looked at the goalie stats after tonight's game, but he's probably the best goalie in the playoffs right now, stats-wise. You're not going to sit him if he stays hot. If he has a great game one, you're not going to take him out for game two. That's bananas. So,
no, he's going back in. I think you ride with him until he gets tired, probably, right? I would think that that's probably the reality of the situation that he's in, right? Like, he's at a .950 save percentage, 160. For guys that have played more than 2 games, he's the number one goalie in the National Hockey League during the playoffs. So I think he's going. I don't think you pull him out unless you're down 0-2, and it's in large part because he played poorly.
Yeah, I agree. There's no reason to stray away from Swayman. He's been that good, and he's. A lot of the commenters are mentioning how calm and collected he is. I don't know if I've told this story on the post-game show. I know I've said it on Bruins Beat and the podcast, but when I was at UMass, Swayman was at Maine, and the UMass student section is pretty big, and it's always like right behind the opposing goalie for 2 periods, and they would taunt the hell out of whatever goalie was in there, but Swayman would have fun with them. Swayman would toss the water into them, wave at them, skate right over to them, and he always had a smile on his face and he was laughing. And I think he's so calm, and just that demeanor of he's so confident. Like you nailed it, just the confidence in his game, and how he's always square and he can get to any puck. Like that's your guy. That's your guy going forward. You developed him, you drafted him, and he proved it. He won you this series. And it's funny because remember how hard he took that first round exit last year, and he only played in Game 7. Like they threw him into the fire for Game 7, and that wasn't why they lost the game at all. Had nothing to do with him. But I remember him saying, like, I stayed in Boston this year. I never want to feel this way again. That was awful. And that's why, like, I don't know if you've seen the video floating around on Twitter of him skating out of the net after they won, of him just kind of like going like this. It's like the meme that's like, oh my God, I can't believe this is my life. That was that. So he's your guy. He's your guy. I think that him and Lohrei, you have legitimate pieces there now. You know that. And I think that's a very good thing.
Yeah, I just want to say congratulations to Mello, who caught the train at North Station by a minute. Let's
go, boys.
That's hard.
I made the train. Wow, I made the train at North Station by a minute. My first playoff game, and it was a good one. You know what, Mello?
Yeah.
Props. That is, I have missed many trains at North Station and just the T in general. So when you can make one, that's a huge win.
I just need to know. Did Mello have to sprint? Was there like some pushing and shoving to get to the T, or were you there in time? Like how did you get there? If you can respond, how did you get there on time?
That's the key. I like that. How did you get there is the perfect, because there is something embarrassing when you do have to run for a train. It's like,
Yep.
I feel demeaning doing this. This is like, if you're running for a train, you're like, my God, I played in the NHL and now I'm running for a train. What am I doing?
Oh no. That moment comes every time I have to pick up sticks on a high school bench. I'm standing on the bench and they would throw all their extra sticks at me and I got to bend over and pick them up. That's oh my goodness, I can't believe I'm doing this. At one point I was playing here. Now I'm picking up high schoolers' sticks. That one hurts.
How reality hits you, and you're talking to me about you're talking to me. That's where you're at. You're talking to me now.
But this is fun. This is the fun part.
This is the fun part. So Swayman, big bright spot. Lohrei, big bright spot. We've talked McAvoy, Pastrnak. I mean, do you think, we don't know if he's dealing with an injury or not? Nothing has been said on that. Nothing will be said on that. Do you think that goal can spark him for a good series against Florida?
I think at any given moment can spark him, and certainly, I mean, the energy that must be running through him right now to score a Game 7 over. I don't know what that feeling's like. Like, although I might have done that a million times in my driveway at 19 Paxton Road in Framingham, Massachusetts, I don't know what it's.
Oh, you're giving your address away?
Well, no, that's my childhood address.
Oh, okay. I thought that was your car, and I was like, geez.
Yeah. So I might have. Yeah, I might have scored those a bunch when I was a kid in the driveway, but in all my 19 games in the National Hockey League, I did not score a Game 7 overtime winner. So the energy that's going through him must be palpable, right? Like, he's a great player. I'm assuming that this is going to get him to be a little bit more aggressive, to look for his own shot, but he needs help. And I don't just mean from the centers. He needs help from Montgomery. He needs to get matchups. He needs to have, right, like, if the fourth line's out there because of an icing, you got to get his line out there, right? Like, allow him to get away from some of the matchups that Toronto did, and Florida will also look to do. he needs some help from the coach, and that is that is easy to do, right? Like that's not a hard ask.
Well, I don't understand. Like, okay, so next series, right? Let's say, in Florida, obviously you're not going to have the advantage. Barkov is going to win the Selke this year. He's the best defensive forward now in the league. If he's up against that Zacha line with Pastrnak on it, there's nothing you can do for games 1 and 2. But when you come back here, if there's an ozone draw and Florida trots out their fourth line or their third line, why not put out Zacha and Pastrnak? I don't know, and I don't get that. I don't understand it. That's an easy way to free up Pastrnak. That's an easy way to get him away from Barkov, and maybe they'll make a more conscious effort of that in the series because Barkov is that good, and Florida is more physical and things like that. Like Kachuk is going to make life hard, and people are asking like, is it over in this next series already? I don't think it is. I think the Bruins are going to put up a fight. I don't think it is as lopsided as people think. Florida's a way better team than Toronto, and this person says, if the Bruins play their best hockey, they can definitely beat Florida, which I agree with. If they play like this last series, Florida will eat them up. I also agree with that. I think if they play the way they did in games 5 through like parts of 7 against Toronto, I think they're cooked. But I think if they play structured, kind of like game 4, making life difficult on Florida, pressuring them, not giving them time and space, and then also trying to win matchups, not just putting your second line against second line and things like that, I think you have a much better chance. And I think that's an adjustment they're going to have to make. I want to ask you about adjustments, on ice adjustments you want to see them make going into the next round. But first, I'll let you think on it for a bit, because a quick word from our friends over at Game Time.
Quick break to tell you about my good friends over at Game Time. I am very excited about the NBA playoffs, and what's awesome is here in Boston, TD Garden is the best atmosphere for a playoff game. Thankfully, we have Game Time, which is an authorized ticket marketplace of the NBA, which makes playoff tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the tip-off. And with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. Maybe it's the NBA playoffs or it's the NHL playoffs. The same is true with the Bruins. TD Garden gets so fun during this time of year, and you want to be there. The Bruins and Celtics are in pursuit of championships, and as the rounds go on, the crowd gets better and better. Nothing beats it. And with Game Time, there's last-minute deals. Save up to 60% off buying last-minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy, theater. There's flash deals. Save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or event. And there are zone deals. Save even more when you choose a section and let Game Time choose the seats. Again, take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets and head over to Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code, again, CLNS. I can't be more clear about that. Use code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets. Lowest price guaranteed. Now, back to the show.
So in terms of on-ice adjustments, we talked a lot in this series about use the weak side. We talked a lot about forechecking Toronto's defense. Florida's defense is better. Florida is better in general. I know we haven't gone to, super in depth on the Panthers, and we won't do that yet. It's a lot. We were focused on Toronto so much, but on-ice adjustments you'd like to see the Bruins make going into the second round. What are they?
Well, I think just overall with your forecheck, it's the same. It's the same. I think Florida's forwards are going to have an advantage. Like they're depth-wise more talented than Boston's is. So you're going to have to put more pressure on them to have good zone exits, to come 200 feet And so what Boston did tonight was only their first forechecker was really aggressive. Everyone else, and at the beginning of the series, they were on top of Toronto's forwards. Today, they sagged back, gave too much time. If you give too much time and space to Florida and allow easy zone entries, I think they're going to eat you up, and it'd be a short series. And I know we talked about. I know we had talked about 2-on-2 is a super aggressive forecheck that it takes up a lot of energy, but I think you're going to have to. I think you have to be more aggressive on the forecheck. You're going to have to. Going to have to create turnovers and be able to attack the net from below the dots, as opposed to, I don't think Boston's good enough to come 200 or 150 feet after turnovers and create those opportunities. So I think your offense in this series is gonna have to be as a result of a good forecheck, and either that 2-1-2 or some sort of flood 1-2-2 flood. They've got to make that adjustment. I think not only relying on the weak side with your zone exits, but I think relying on the reverse, because you know that Kachuk and Barkov and those Florida Panthers will be aggressive and finish their hit. So you've got to use that to your advantage. You're probably going to have to come low too and support the puck with a team that's overly physical. If the puck moves in 5 and 10 foot increments, you're going to be successful, right? Especially if Florida's looking to finish all of their hits throughout the series. You have to make them chase a little bit. If you're going to continually try to stretch it on them, it might be a little bit difficult, but yeah, they've got to. I said if Boston won Game 7, and as we go into Game 1 of the Florida Panthers series, I will pull out the whiteboard for Game 1. I just don't think at 12:32 on a Saturday night is the right time for the whiteboard. But Monday evening, mark my words, I'll have the whiteboard.
I love it. I'm so excited. It's whiteboard season. That's what it is.
Yes.
Hashtag whiteboard season. I agree with you. Florida's D is better. You can move the puck a lot better. So you have to be wary of that. And I think, again, it goes back to kind of what Florida did to you last year, which was forecheck the hell out of them. And it's going to be a physical series. Like, and I don't love sitting back in the neutral zone, especially against talented teams, because if you give them time and space, they're going to make most likely good decisions. And I don't like sitting back. Go at them, and I know that sometimes leads to odd man rushes, which isn't the best, but I still would rather forcing turnovers in the offensive zone and placing a premium on that, I think, is the most important thing. And against Florida and a guy like Sergei Bobrovsky, like, yeah, you're going to want high danger chances for sure, but you also want shots that are going to surprise him. You want shots he's not going to be able to see. And I think that's going to be huge going into round 2.
Yeah, and I think, and not to keep harping on this, at home you've got to win the matchup battle. You have to. That's one, to make the game easier. I think 2, I think you need to establish a number 1 power play. I think Boston started the series really well on the power play, but like that first power play today, Brad Marchand played 5 seconds of a crucial power play, right? Like you had Brazeau and Van Riemsdyk out there. Like, establish a number 1, put your 5 best players on that, and say, right, like Pastrnak will stay out for 2 minutes. I think it's fine if Marchand and or McAvoy stay out there for close to the 2 minutes, but you can't. No offense to them, and they played great tonight. You can't have Brazeau and Van Riemsdyk staying out for 1:45 of a 2-minute power play. Establish your number 1 power play. Get them going. And I don't know what Florida's penalty kill is, so try to exploit whatever the weakness is there. But I think that would be 2 other parts, right? Like we talked about the matchups, but establish your number 1 power play.
one guy on the power play is Kevin Shattenkirk that we've talked a lot about. And Martian had an interesting quote out of the room just now. This is from Ty Anderson, who I was looking at off camera. That was who was flipping me off. So I had to defend myself against Ty Anderson. He said, Martian says Shattenkirk gave team an incredible speech on Friday night that allowed them to settle down. Quote, we knew that everybody was going to bring their best game and do their job. You felt it and you could see it on everyone's face. I think that is the benefit of keeping a guy like Shattenkirk in the lineup, is that experience, being a guy who's been through a lot of these types of games, been in these situations. And I think you look at guys like McAvoy and Pastrnak, who seemed, in the last couple games to just the moment, just not owning it and just holding their stick a little too tight. And I think, Shattenkirk's speech, there were still some of those problems tonight. But I do think, having guys like Shattenkirk and Maroon help this time of year, because those guys have been through it, and kind of getting that veteran guy who can go in there and be like, guys, settle down. And it's interesting because, like, for a guy like Lohrei, it's almost like he doesn't know any better. It's like this is just he's just gonna go out and do it. He's rookie, whereas same with Beecher, right? Beecher just flying in and scoring. Whereas when you have guys like McAvoy and Posh, they know it's at stake. They know what it feels like to lose. They don't want it to happen again. And for some players, I think that's, just a relentless, they're just going to go, balls to the wall to make sure that doesn't happen. Whereas some others hold the stick a little too tight and they get, play a little more conservative and trying to pass first. And I think, I think that crept in a bit. And I think, it sounds like Shattenkirk's speech played out pretty well because they did come out better in the first, which also was a big, we haven't talked about that at all. The first period, they didn't get as many high danger chances as I would have wanted, but they certainly got more chances than they did in the last two games, which is encouraging. So good to see Kevin Shattenkirk giving that speech. I guess they're going to do a documentary on it. They're going to have to do like a movie on Kevin Shattenkirk.
Keep Kevin Shattenkirk in the lineup because he gives good speeches.
That's a Brunswick Bruin right there you're talking about, all right? That's a Brunswick alum. That's right in our wheelhouse. Shout out Brunswick.
Yeah, no, good player. You can. I'd have to go back and look at minutes, but minutes across the board. Didn't play a ton throughout the series. You have him out there, and they use him quite a bit. And when you notice him with offensive zone draws, and most often with that fourth line. But that veteran leadership is important at times. I think though with retrievals against Florida is going to be tough for him. He doesn't play with a ton of pace. I know that our fans will get on Grzelcyk, doesn't like the physicality, and that would be an issue. I think at times in the next series you're probably going to see Grzelcyk at some point. Shattenkirk will definitely go game one. I think you do roll out this lineup, keep them going. But Bruins fan, Grzelcyk will be in the lineup at some point during the series.
I would assume, and I would think you'd need it. That was a big problem against Florida last year, was just the bad breakouts, and they're putting the court together again. So that's why you're hearing the drilling.
Good question.
And
sorry.
You're going to bring up Peak?
Yeah, I am. Yeah. Is there any status on him playing?
So he was skating, according to Twitter. He was skating on this morning or Saturday morning at morning skate. I think he's still week to week. So I would assume, like, you probably do want to rush. I want to rush him back for this series. Doesn't mean I would, like, as of now, I wouldn't expect game 1 or 2, but could it be game 3? Could it be game 4? Could it be later in the series? Like, I think in that sense, maybe yes. And I think he brings, you want a guy like him in the lineup. You wanted him tonight. You wanted him against Toronto. But I agree, like, the Bruins had a really tough time. We did the post-game shows last year. How about the fact that we're not a curse? Because you could have made the argument, we did the 2 years we did post-game shows, they blew 3-1 leads. And I was a little worried. I'm like, can we run it back next year if they lose in game 7? Are we the bad luck?
Yeah,
but
I think
we're not.
I think
we're not the bad luck.
Yeah, I was worried about that this evening. like Montgomery, I was worried if Boston lost, I was probably getting fired.
We're,
Yeah,
yeah, me too. We were gone.
it was, and no fans, no comment section would ever get to see the whiteboard. So I think that's probably why the butterflies were so high tonight. The thought process that you might fire me.
We're gonna have to have a tough conversation. It was gonna be tough. I think I would have fired myself too on that. I think I would have. It's accountability. You gotta do that.
We gotta figure out if this goes longer, we gotta get a live podcast or at La Cantina or something like that.
That's right. For the premium people out there who know, La Cantina is a goated restaurant. Unbelievable Italian food in Framingham, Massachusetts. So big shout out to La Cantina. We got to get them as like a sponsor, La Cantina, to sponsor this. To me, you look back last year and the Bruins had a lot of tough times breaking the puck out. That's where I think Grzelcyk might help you in this series. It's going to be physically imposing. Guys are going to target his corner. They're going to dump it in his corner. They're going to put him through the glass. But I do think, we do have someone who concurs on La Cantina. That's all I needed tonight. And we can end it right here. But I do think that, having Grzelcyk in the lineup would help. For sure. There's a lot of people in here in the comments talking about the future of the Leafs. Okay. So do we want to give a quick thought on that? I think this is an interesting one. We mentioned, this series, whoever lost Game 7, their coach is probably losing their job. I thought Sheldon Keefe got better as the series went along. I don't know if this probably doesn't save his job. He's probably done. Another first round exit. They did almost come back in the series, so like props to them for that. But I don't think you had to win the series. You had to move on. So that's kind of my number one thing is Keefe is most likely done. And then the other is, do you trade Marner? Like, because after Game 4, we're like, we got to trade Marner and this and that. Like, do you still do that?
Would I say trade Marner?
I don't know. Did you?
No, because I love Marner.
Together.
I love Marner.
Right.
I'm a big Marner. This series put me off a little bit on him in the sense that I think at times over the last couple games, he was in large part because Boston gave him a ton of time and space. Like, he's creative, and when he has control of the puck, he's scary. He just didn't do enough in this series to help Toronto win. And in a Game 7 situation, you're looking for your best players to be your best players, and with Matthews clearly not at 100%, you needed Marner to create some offense, and he just wasn't able to do it in this series. So I still don't think you trade him. I mean, the difficult part for them is their top 4 guys make so much money. I don't know how you offload those salaries, right? I mean, you'd have to be giving up something to go along with it for someone to take it, right? Like, at this point, Tavares is probably the one that you would want to unload because he's getting older. He's still a good player, but for sure Keith's gone. You need to figure out what you can do in net. You haven't been able to solidify that for some time. I can't think of – I know Leaf fans will – I can't think of anyone – Curtis Joseph?
Yes, he was one.
It was great.
Was Belfour with the Leafs at all or no? Completely missing
Belfour was with the Leafs, but I think Curtis Joseph was after Belfour, so I'm not sure.
I remember Curtis Joseph from his Phoenix Coyote days. That's how I know Curtis Joseph. That's more my time. Marner, like, to me, we talked a lot about a Tkachuk-Huberdeau type trade with the Bruins, and I still don't think that's out of the realm for them. If you can find one, I don't know who you pick though. The Leafs, I think, need something like that. Whether it's to bolster their defense, I don't know if you could really do it for in net, but just shake things up. And everyone points at Marner as sort of the guy that would be the piece to go. because he's valuable as hell. And a team would, you could get a haul from Mitch Marner, I think. Like, I don't know who the fit is because it would probably have to be a team that's contending out west. Is it a team like Utah who wants to kind of have another marketable player alongside Clayton Keller? Like, would Utah be a potential spot for Mitch Marner? But also, what are you giving up? And what is Toronto getting? They still want to compete. You still have Austin Matthews. You still have Nylander. So like, you're not gonna retool or anything like that. But like, what do you get for Marner? What are you looking to get for Marner? Is it, a couple roster players? Is it a roster, a top roster player and a couple firsts? Like, I don't, so again, I'm spitballing here and I'm not a Leafs expert, so I don't, have all the answers for that. But I think I would assume the Maple Leafs and their media are going to be asking a lot of tough questions with guys like Marner, and because you're not trading Matthews, you're not trading Nylander. It's probably Marner. I'd assume it would be Marner. So we'll see if they do it. We've said this for years now. Will they do it or not? And they haven't. But this it feels kind of urgent. I don't know. I mean, I know they came back, so there's that. But I still think they probably.
Well, they're going to do something. They're going to do something, right? Like they can't.
They have to.
Yeah, they can't run it back and expect things to change, right? Over the course of the last 5 years, they made it out of the first round once. So, Toronto fans aren't going to stand for that. Like, too good of a city, too good traditionally of an organization with a passionate fan base. So, you would, and I've said this throughout this series, when there's a Canadian team in the playoffs, and not just in the playoffs, but in the next rounds, the games are so much better. Games are so much better. Like, obviously, we love when the Bruins move on in the National Hockey League playoffs, but there's just a different passion level when you go up to play or watch a game in any of those Canadian cities, and it is fun to have them. Right, like no team has won since 1993. Right? Like Patrick Waugh's Montreal Canadiens. That has to change. And you see, right, like the way that it's kind of changed a little bit. Like players are smarter, right? Like Florida, Tampa Bay, Nashville, Seattle, although they didn't do all that well this year.
Vegas.
Las Vegas. What do those all have in common? Income tax free. Income tax free.
And they're places that people want to play. But you're right. Yeah. Income tax free is a big one. And I think now with Canadian, like, I know stuff has been mentioned by Maple Leafs players and Canadian players that, it's a great market to play in, but it's tough. When times are tough, it's bad. It can be bad. And so I think when you go play in Florida, right, with the Panthers or the Lightning, the no income tax, and then also on top of that, I mean, there's pressure. Like, I'm not saying there isn't, but it's not crazy. I think, Panthers and Lightning players can often go to bars and sometimes not get recognized, where if you're like Austin Matthews, you can't walk into a Toronto bar. Like that'd be insane. You couldn't do it. So I think there's also that too. But I do think Toronto does need to shake things up. Is it Keefe? Is it Shanahan? But we're not asking those questions of the Bruins right now. We're not.
Not yet.
Not yet. No, that's correct. Not yet. We'll see what happens in the next round. And what can come of that. Because we haven't gone too deep on the Panthers yet, so I'm not going to be like, oh, what do you predict? My only prediction right now, and I have to kind of look more into the Panthers in the next day or so. My prediction is that I think the Bruins put up more of a fight than people think. I do, but they have to make those changes. They have to make those adjustments. We've talked about numerous times. You need to adjust, and I think that's going to be a big thing going forward. Do we have any leftover thoughts from this series? Anything that you'll remember? Anything we haven't talked about?
I think getting over the hump not just winning Game 7, but going down 1-0, and then having the resiliency,
Yes. Oh,
having
I'm
the,
glad you brought this up.
having the resiliency to score a minute 23 later, and then win in overtime. I think that's big, not just for the next round, that possibly moving forward. Because Boston's not a place that makes wholesale changes. They're not going to do a complete rebuild. So I think for the group, that's important. Now, for the next series, I still would have Florida in 6, but can you get Game 1, and can you put some pressure on Florida?
So I'm so glad you brought up the resiliency in that third period, because when Nylander scored, I said that's it. I turned to the writers next to me. I said that's it. It's over. Maple Leafs just won, and the Bruins could have rolled over, and they didn't. And you mentioned the third line, that Frederick line with Van Riemsdyk and Brazeau. Just a minute later, have a long offensive zone sequence. They have a great follow-up shift to give it to the Bruins giving up a goal, and it leads to Lindholm scoring. And like, to me, that was huge. I think that says a lot about that line, the resiliency to just not care, go right back out there and do that. And I think if there was any moment where I think Bruins fans could feel good, it was that one where it's like, all right, that's a good sign. That's a good sign. And you know what's interesting? I meant to read this earlier, and I skipped over it. Jim Montgomery mentioned after the game, he told his staff he was never more confident that they were going to win than he was entering overtime. Said whole day and game felt different. Now, I don't agree. I was not in that camp. I think you were not in that camp either. Felt like a lucky bounce for the Leafs was going to go in, and they would have deserved it. But again, I give the Bruins full credit. Like, own the moment. They did, and that was that. But that shift from Frederick's line was huge after that goal, and I think you have to keep that Frederick line together, right?
Yeah, I think that was your best line. I think the one thing that will be interesting is Danton Heinen ready to play? Because he'll slot back into the lineup. It's just who do you take out? I don't know, because it's going to be a physical series, so probably Maroon stays in. It's just who would come out if Heinen's ready to play. But yeah, you got to keep that third line together.
Yeah, I think you do. You know what's interesting? I was just thinking about this. So historically now, the Bruins, every time, 13, 18, and now this, they have blown 3-1 series leads to the Leafs only to win in Game 7, which is pretty funny. But it's interesting when you go back and look at those years, not so much 2018, because they went to the second round and got crushed by Tampa. Maybe that's what's going to happen in this case, except it's just Florida, not Tampa. But you think back to like 2011, right? Bruins faced the Canadiens in round 1, went down 2-0, looked in really bad shape. They lost both games in Boston to open that series. And there were a lot of people saying Claude needs to be fired. This is ridiculous. And they end up winning that series in 7 games and then going on to win the cup. And you look at 2013 too, right? And that series against the Leafs, down 3-1, down 4-1 in the third period of Game 7. Everybody's like, oh, Claude Julien, he's done. And said that they end up going to the cup. I know they don't win, but they end up going there. And you do wonder, like the thing I mentioned a little bit earlier, of when a team kind of overcomes adversity, granted adversity given to themselves by bad play, but still to overcome that and get over the hump, you do wonder if this is sort of going to propel them further. I don't know if the cup is not there. I'm not there, but I do think the second round is going to be more competitive than people think.
Well, I look forward to watching it on Monday night.
Yes, it should be good.
We might still be on the air at that point, but
we're gonna go for another 48 hours.
We'll try.
48 hours.
Yeah, I look forward to the series. You know that it's going to be fast. You know that the games are going to be close and competitive. I really think it hinges on Boston's ability to win the series solely rest on game one? Can they steal that one? Can they get it done because they've been playing for a while and Panthers are pretty cold right now. So they've got to be aggressive in game one and put pressure on Florida all over the rink.
I completely agree. I think we've hit on just about everything. Swayman, Lohrei, Lindholm, McAvoy, the third line, Pastrnak. I think Montgomery. We've hit on everything. Again, we're presented by Prize Picks. Use that promo code CLNS to get up to $100 matched on your first deposit, as well as we're presented by Game Time. You want to go to game 3 and 4 against Florida? You want to get some revenge? Use that promo code CLNS. Get $20 off your first pair of tickets. Terms apply. Go to Game Time. So it's easy. CLNS, Game Time, CLNS Prize Picks. I think we've touched on everything.
Yep.
I think we have. I don't think there's anything we haven't hit on. Montgomery saves his job. Bruins, not complete chokers. They move on. Toronto continues its downward spiral. 6 1/3, I think, is a big Leafs fan. They've been on like every episode that we've done of this, and they've sat through everything. Mad props to them.
Yeah, thank you so much.
The Leafs fans have been great. I really like most Maple Leafs fans. There have been some that have not been so great, but most have been very respectful and have watched our stuff. So hopefully things turn around for them, and much appreciated to them for their tuning in to these shows. And that's it. So we're back. How about that? It's like, Carl, it's like we've been renewed for a second season.
No, I can't.
Second round.
I can't wait. But yeah, last thing I think someone says, don't forget to check out La Cantina to all those people out there. Great Framingham spot. And to 6 1/3, yeah, to 6 1/3. Thanks so much for tuning in every night. Really appreciated you having some thoughtful comments here. So good luck to Toronto.
Yes, and Viva La Cantina. That's what it is. Viva La Cantina, forever and always. But yeah, that's when the postgame show. Bruins move on. They survive in advance. Pastrnak wins at no T. Swayman makes a bunch of saves, and we move on to round 2. So we will see you on Monday night.